if you look at verse 9, there's something that a lot of people have missed. When it talks about the mark of the beast, not getting the mark, what's the word right before the word mark? His. That's right, his mark. This is something that some people, and I'm the same way. Sometimes something's right in front of our faces and we miss it. I hate to tell you this, and actually I did this once in a seminar, and a lot of people raised their hands and it happened to them. One time I was looking for my glasses. I looked all around, I couldn't find them. And guess where they were? They were right there. And I was so embarrassed. Wow, boy, I'm really getting old, Lord. But anyway, my point is that sometimes things are right in front of our face and we don't see it. Now, when the Bible says the mark of the beast is, what's that word again before mark? His mark. So here's my point. It's so simple, but we so often miss it, that the mark of the beast is the mark of the beast. It's the beast's mark. It's this beast right here that we talked about in our last meeting. That's the beast that has the mark. So don't you think it's important that we know who that beast is? Because that's the beast that has the mark. The mark of the beast is not some isolated thing, but it comes from the beast. The beast is described in the book of Revelation. And we did this last night. We had a long Bible study on who that beast is. And now you know who that beast is. We studied this very, very carefully, and I shared with you last night that I don't believe this is talking about individual people, but it's talking about a system that has been at war with simple Bible truth for almost 2,000 years. Now, I've got something here in my hand that somebody gave me, and I bring this to my seminars just for this moment. This is an old Bible. It was a family heirloom. It belonged to a lay Presbyterian preacher. It says that at the beginning of this Bible. And they gave this to me. And there's something in here I've got to share with you. This particular Bible, it's an old New Testament Bible, and it has footnotes. Now, I don't believe that all footnotes are inspired by God, but I think sometimes they can be helpful to understand some things. And in Revelation chapter 13, when it talks about the mark of the beast, this old Presbyterian lay preacher Bible has a footnote there under the mark. And this is what it says. It says, a mark. This means submission to the rites and ceremonies of the papal communion. In their right hand, this is active obedience to the papal power. In their foreheads, by outward profession of its doctrines and infallible authority. So I'm just showing you this to show you that the Protestant position, Lutheran, Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, for a long, long time, as I shared with you earlier, was that the first beast represents the Roman Catholic Church. Not that all Catholics are bad, or that there's going to be a whole lot of Catholics that are going to heaven. I believe that. But the system itself has been pinpointed by many for a long, long time. And so I want to just make that point, that the mark of the beast, whatever it is something that comes from Rome, something that comes from the Roman Church. And we need to understand that. Now, let me go on back to the three angels' messages. This is amazing what I'm about to share with you, so put your seatbelts on. When you look at the first angel's message, and I've got these words highlighted in blue here, Revelation 14, verse 7 says, worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and everything in it. Worship the maker of all life. That's verse 7. Verse 9 says, don't worship the beast or his image or receive his mark. Now, if you look at those two verses, 7 and 9, put them together, it's very clear that the mark of the beast has to do with worship. It's a worship issue. We either worship the Creator or worship the beast and get the mark. You following me? That's what the text says. And we've also read in verse 12 that it has to do with the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Those who keep the commandments do not get the mark. Now, I've got to show this to you. I'm going to hold these up. These are very heavy. Sometimes I take these through security in airports and get quite a lot of looks from the people who are scanning things. These are solid tables of stone I have here. The Big Ten Commandments. And I'll tell you that what makes this law different than any other law ever written is the fact that this law was written, the Bible says, on stone with the finger of God. Exodus 31:18. No other law is like the Big Ten. Now, when God wrote it with his own finger, that tells us it's very, very important. And when he wrote it on stone, that tells us you can never change the 10 Commandments. Never. Have you heard the expression, we can change this or that because it's not written in stone? It has to do with the Big Ten. God wrote with his own finger the Ten Commandments. And I believe, when you look at the New Testament, that Jesus Christ is not just a man, that he's God. It's very clear in the New Testament. And actually, it's clear that he's our creator. John 1:10 says he was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. I believe it was Jesus who, with his own finger, wrote the Big Ten on stone. And when you put the pieces together, this is a powerful truth. The same finger that wrote the law was on a hand that was nailed to a cross. Just for the record, I do not believe in salvation by works. I do not believe in salvation by law. I believe in salvation through Jesus Christ himself alone. But it's also clear in the Bible that if we have faith, as it says there on this on the screen there, Revelation 14:12, and this banner here, that Jesus sacrificed himself because we broke his commandments. The reason for the cross is because we broke the law. Because we broke the law, Jesus died on the cross. That's what sin is. Sin is breaking God's commandments. And we're saved through the cross, but when we're saved through the cross and our hearts are changed by his grace, then we want to do what's right. We want to keep his commandments because we love God. That's the biblical understanding of law and grace. And Revelation 14:12 tells us that those who keep the commandments and the faith of Jesus together, they don't get the mark. They don't get the mark. Now, I'm going to tell you something absolutely shocking. Are you ready for this? Here we go. You see it on the screen there, the three angels' messages say, worship the Creator and keep the commandments and the faith of Jesus. Is that right? Does the Bible say that, or am I making that up? The Bible says that. This is God talking, not man, not Steve Wahlberg. God says, worship the maker of heaven and earth and keep the commandments. Now, here is the shocking reality. When you look at the Ten Commandments written with the finger of God, there is only one commandment that talks about the maker of heaven and earth and the sea and everything in it. There's only one. And I'm going to push my button here. If you look on the screen there, look at those tables on there. And it is commandment number 4. It's the only one. When you look up what the Bible says about the beast, only one organization fits. When you look up what the Bible says about the second beast, only one nation fits. When you look at the Ten Commandments, there's only one about the Creator. Only one. And it's this one right here. And this one starts out, this is in Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 to 11. It says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. And when you keep reading the commandment in the Bible, it says, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and everything in it, and he rested on the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and he hallowed it. That's what the law of God says, written with his own finger on solid rock. Now, let's talk about this issue. What day is the seventh day anyway? What day did Jesus rise from the dead on? He rose on, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all say he rose on the first day of the week. And what's the day before the first day of the week? It's the seventh day. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all say that the seventh day of the week is sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, and Jesus rested in the tomb during the Sabbath, and he rose from the dead on the first day of the week. Now the question is, did his resurrection change the Sabbath? I know a lot of people believe that it did, but you won't find that in the Bible. If you look at languages around the world, the majority of languages for the word Saturday is Sabbath. Who knows how do you say Saturday in Spanish? Sábado, which means Sabbath. In Russian, it's subota, which means Sabbath. And somebody handed me this some time ago. This is interesting. In the Ghana language, the day for Saturday is Memenida, which means God's day. And then Sunday, the day for Sunday is Quasi Umbrani. And you know what that means? It means white man brought this day. That's in the Ghana language. That's right. Jesus kept the seventh-day Sabbath in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's very interesting to discover that of all the times that the New Testament talks about the first day of the week, and there are 8 times in the Gospels and in Corinthians and 1 in the book of Acts, none of those times ever came from the lips of Jesus Christ himself. He never mentioned the first day of the week himself even one time. Jesus was a seventh-day Sabbath keeper, and he actually referred to himself as the Lord of the Sabbath. He was the Lord of the Sabbath. Now, let's talk about the Sunday Sabbath issue. Here you see on the screen a sign that says change to Sunday. It's no secret that today the majority of sincere Bible-believing Christians do not keep the seventh-day Sabbath anymore. They keep the first day of the week, right? And I want you to know for the record that I believe there's a whole lot of people who are going to church on Sunday and have been going to church on Sunday for a long time who are going to be in the kingdom of heaven. So don't misunderstand. But I do believe this is going to become a big issue at the end of time that we need to know about.